Ghidorah's Prairie and Northern Region, podcast number 2, Steinbach South. The Steinbach South Airport is located in southeastern Manitoba, 2 nautical miles south of the city of Steinbach. Runway 1836 is turf and asphalt, 3,112 feet long, 100 feet wide, with the center 25 feet being asphalt. Runway 0725 is turf, 1,834 feet long and 100 feet wide. The aerodrome elevation is 888 feet. In this episode, we have 3 Ghidorah reports occurring at Steinbach South to discuss. I'm Brad Crockett, a private pilot, single-engine land. Joining me is Praveen Premchandran, Chief Flight Instructor at Tyler Aviation. Thank you for joining us again, Praveen.
It's good to be back here again, Brad.
Our first report is Ghidorah's number 2003 C-1072. Nav Canada reports that on August 2, 2003, at 21:34 Zulu, the Cessna 152, registration Golf Kilo Tango Juliet, was on a round-trip flight plan from Steinbach South, direct Morden, direct Lac du Bonny, direct Steinbach South. The pilot called the Winnipeg Flight Information Center frequency on 126.7 to report that he was lost. The pilot was requested to change frequency to 122.5 by the flight service station. His last known position was Lac du Bonny. The pilot was then changed to Winnipeg terminal frequency and was provided navigation assistance. The flight landed safely at Steinbach South at 21:59 Zulu. That's the end of the report. Praveen, for those of us who haven't flown in the prairies, can you describe what it's like to navigate there?
For starters, there's not too many topographical landmarks. Your best landmark, so to speak, is besides the towns. You can see all the grids that are formed by the country roads, or mile roads as it is also known around there, because there's a road every mile and they run all parallel, north-south and east-west. So that's one very easy way to navigate. Certain areas, especially as you get closer to the Manitoba-Ontario border, they kind of start to get a little marshy and there's lots more lakes out there. So like areas like near Lac du Bonny or around the Lake of the Woods area, they can be a little bit difficult to navigate. The biggest thing you've got to remember to navigate on the prairie is to remember to absolutely follow your heading and your time, right? So if your heading is correct and of course, make sure your heading indicator is reset every 15 minutes or so, and you're closely watching your time, you should be fine. But that being said, given conditions, it can be a little harder for a rookie pilot to lose track of where he or she is. I actually have personally been lost once. I wouldn't quite call it lost, flying around the Lake of the Woods area during my time building as a private pilot, and I had to get assistance myself.
Would there have been any consequences for this pilot for calling Winnipeg Radio to get help?
I don't see anything wrong whatsoever in calling Winnipeg Radio to get help. The only thing that would really be a consequence is a little hurt pride. But as far as I'm concerned, it is better to call Winnipeg Radio and ask for help than wandering around aimlessly until you run out of fuel. So just remember CRM, Crew Resource Management. Technically, Winnipeg Radio is not your crew, but it's important that you make use of resources, and it looks like that's what the pilot did here.
Our second report is Ghidorah's number 2010 C-1446. Nav Canada reports that on May 19, 2010, at 0204 Zulu, The pilot of a Harv's Air Service Citabria, registration Golf Zulu Kilo Charlie, reported to the Winnipeg Flight Information Center that, while returning to the Steinbach South Airport, he observed a green laser being pointed at his aircraft. The laser was shone at the aircraft for about 1 minute. He circled around to try to pinpoint the origin of the light, but could only state that it was near a cell tower near the airport. That's the end of the report. What are the effects of a laser strike?
Quoting partly from the article on the Transport Canada website regarding laser strikes, the biggest problems with laser strikes are the fact that it distracts the pilot, causes a glare on the windshield affecting your vision, and may also be a cause of temporary blindness. Now, in extremely rare cases, lasers are also known to cause permanent blindness. In any of these cases, the pilot will be unable to continue flight in a safe manner at that point. Considering that airplanes go at much faster speeds than the average car or truck that's driving on the road, that is quite unsafe and can lead to an accident, especially if the person's coming in for a landing or something. A lot of the laser strikes are being reported by the bigger airliners. The fact that they carry a lot of people, we don't really want a mishap to let us know that it is not the right thing to do.
On April 17, 2016, the team supervisor from the Nanaimo Flight Service Station gave a presentation to the Nanaimo Flying Club, and he spoke about the pilot reports of laser strikes. I have a clip of it I'd like to play for you now.
Yeah, let's hear that.
They started a new program with a bunch of key partners, and they started training people on the new procedure as of 2012. It's between NAV Canada, the RCMP, Transport Canada, ECOM, and then the federal and provincial Crown prosecutors. It's a joint partnership and training program with all of those different agencies trying to work together to make sure that when these incidents are reported, that they have a chance to actually find the source of the light and prosecute the person. So if a pilot reports a laser strike to us, we ask them to, if they're able, determine the location, if it's safe. And then we call ECOM. ECOM is a call center that's with the RCMP, but they are specifically dealing with aviation-related threats. It ups the response time and the response level dramatically. And then we provide updates as required to the law enforcement, and then we ask you to file the Transport Canada Directed Light Source form. The RCMP investigates, and they will, if they've got available air resources, they will put them in the air to try and find the source as rapidly as possible, and they'll also bring in police dog services. The following day, civil aviation inspectors automatically notified. All the charges and information collected from the reports that the pilot filed, as well as from the police officers, will collect information on the scene, and everything like that is forwarded to the Crown for prosecutions. It's hard to prosecute, but with the escalation, we've had some better success. There's been 16 laser strikes reported since this program was introduced, 13 police responses. We had 4 arrests, and of the 4 arrests, we actually got 3 convictions. So, I mean, as you can see, when they can actually get there in time and catch the people, they've got a 75% conviction rate.
How would you feel about reporting a laser strike?
I would say all pilots should definitely report laser strikes, and while doing so, they should give as much detail as possible. The Aeronautics Act does say that persons responsible for laser strikes can be fined up to $100,000 or 5 years in prison, or both. That shows you how serious this offense is. Now, as far as the Ghidorah we're talking about, I would like to commend the pilot of the Harv's Air Citabria there for doing the right thing and reporting it to the Flight Information Center. Just pilots in general have the responsibility to educate people you know about laser strikes and letting them know how harmful it is for people flying up above.
Our final report is Ghidorah's number 2016 C0988. On February 3, 2016, at 16:45 Zulu, An Allied Wings Griffin, registration Foxtrot Yankee Zulu Romeo, on a local VFR flight from Portage La Prairie Southport, was proceeding from Steinbach South direct to Southport at 4,000 feet. The flight had visual on a Harv's Air Service Cessna 152, registration Gulf Zulu Lima Foxtrot, on a local VFR flight from Steinbach South. The helicopter descended to 3,500 feet to avoid the 152, which appeared to be at the same altitude. That's the end of the report. Why would either of these VFR flights be at 4,000 feet?
Well, the report isn't very clear as to the exact location of these aircraft, but Steinbach South Airport has RNAV approaches to both runways. They're based on the GPS. Now, the approach to runway 18 has a missed approach procedure, and this takes it to about 9.5 nautical miles south of the aerodrome. Now, this area is Class G airspace, and it is quite commonly used by Harv's Air as an unofficial practice area. I'm guessing that the helicopter that came in to Steinbach was doing an IFR training flight, and they did the missed approach procedure, which took them right into the practice area or the Class G uncontrolled area, which might have been where the 152 was doing their practice air work. The pilots who fly out of Harv's Air, they monitor a different frequency in that area so that they don't congest 126.7, which is what most people will follow on in Class G airspace. Now, the helicopter pilot may not have known that, and as part of their missed approach procedure, they would have been quite a ways south and in Class G airspace. The Ghidorah does say that they were on a VFR flight, but they might have been on an IFR training flight, and as a result, 4,000 feet after the missed approach procedure might have been the cruising altitude for them to fly back to Portage, and the 152 might have been high enough in the practice area to be above the 2,000 feet above ground level required to do upper air work as per the CARS.
So in a practice area, you can expect aircraft to be at non-standard altitudes for direction of flight. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct, because, well, for starters, it is a Class G airspace, and they weren't cruising anywhere. They were doing their upper air work, which means they could be at whatever altitude that the pilot deems safe.
What can pilots do to prevent this kind of conflict?
Well, if this is Class G airspace, as I hypothesized, then the biggest thing for all pilots is to make sure you look for airplanes and you are seen by other aircraft as well if you're VFR. Now, if the airplanes were in the Class Charlie airspace, that is Winnipeg's terminal, then traffic information is provided and the pilots can request traffic resolution. Just remember that there's lots of airspace in Canada which is designated as Class Golf, which means you don't even need a radio. You just need to see and be seen.
That's it for this episode. You can reach the podcast by email at podcast@cadors.ca or on the website cadors.ca. Praveen, how can listeners contact you?
You can contact me on my email. That's praveen@tyleair.com, tylair.com.
Thank you for listening to the Ghidorah's podcast as we take advantage of our license to learn. Thanks to Thomas Murphy of NAV Canada for the information session and to the Nanaimo Flying Club for hosting it. Please note that for the most part, Transport Canada Ghidorah's reports contain preliminary unconfirmed data which can be subject to change. This podcast is provided by cadors.ca, not by Transport Canada or any other government agency.